right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, and welcome to another installment of the Teachers Edition show right here on Facebook and YouTube Live every first Sunday of the month at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. My name is James Johnson, and I'm here to give you the inside scoop.
And I'm Brittany Batson, educator, creator, and inspirator, here to drop all the deets with a little bit of heat.
All right, I like that. We're going to heat it up on tonight. And we are honored to be your host on this evening. In tonight's episode, we're going to be exploring the topic, reimagining and redesigning education for the future. The pandemic has disrupted all sectors of society and placed a laser beam focus on the inequities and challenges that, quite frankly, already existed in public education. Through our topic, we will be focusing on three key areas. First off, we'll discuss the disruption of schooling and our shift to remote learning. Then, the transition to reopen our schools across America. Lastly, we're going to reflect on this past year with the 3 R's in mind. And no, not reading, writing, and arithmetic, but instead, how are we recovering from the pandemic, redesigning education from what we have learned, both the good and the bad, and restarting from the bottom to create an entirely new experience for all of our children.
Absolutely, James. And to help us facilitate this much needed conversation, James and I have invited 3 special guests to join us in the Teachers Lounge with 3 very unique perspectives on tonight's topics. Our first guest is Mr. Brian Ingram, who is the proud principal at Dunbar Elementary School, where he is raising the bar, pun intended, each and every day for his students, faculty, and staff. Also joining us in the Teachers Lounge is Miss Arlithia Mackey, who teaches 7th grade ELA at Veritas College Preparatory Charter School. And lastly, we have Mr. Dejuan Hendriks, who's a senior account executive with iHeartRadio. Tonight, he'll be representing that important parent voice and perspective. Once we conclude this dynamic conversation, we'll be recognizing and celebrating our Principal's List recipient, Dr. Brianna Fulton, who's the literacy instructional coach and children's author.
Okay, come on through, Brittany, with the full house. As you guys can see, we have some amazing folks in here tonight. And before we head into the Teachers Lounge with these amazing guests and, of course, our audience, we need you to do 3 things before we get this show started. Number 1, if you have not already done so, we need you to click like, click share, and make sure that you comment in that chat box to keep it live throughout the show. And lastly, don't hide this. Don't keep it all to yourself. Share it with some friends, okay? Let them get this good information as well. Follow us on social media at The Collective MEM and at The Teachers Edition on Facebook and Instagram to continue to get updates even beyond the show. And then lastly, what we need you to do is stay tuned for some awesome prizes and giveaways, because you got to be in order to win. So, Brittany, are you ready to get this show started?
You know I am, James.
Now, before we actually get the show started, I want to ask Brittany one question really quickly. I know there's a lot going on in the world. It is a beautiful Sunday for all of us who celebrate Easter. It was a wonderful Easter day. Brittany, what is one thing that you are grateful for? There's so much going on, but what is one thing that you're grateful for?
So actually 2 things come to mind, James, and that's faith and family for me.
Yes.
And those 2 things have really kept me grounded during this crazy time and unknown, so many unknowns, but my faith, because first and foremost, I am a Christian and a child of God. And secondly, my family, they've really kept me level-headed and grounded during this process.
That's amazing. Faith and family. You can't go wrong there.
Hey, Crystal Allen.
Hey, Crystal. Well, I know for me personally, in terms of what I'm grateful for, it's definitely my support system and my family as well. For me personally, this has been a very, challenging year, just adjusting to all of the shifts. And I think once I got my mind made up to go ahead and be a part of this transformational thing, I was able to do so with the support of my village. So I'm so grateful for that. And I'm glad that, we had some similarities there too. For all of those folks who are watching, this is what we need you to do before we head into the next segment. We need you to light that chat up and put in the chat on this beautiful Sunday. What is one thing that you are grateful for? Sometimes it is so easy to focus on the negative. What is just one thing that you are grateful for on today? And with that being said, we're going to get ready to head to our next segment this evening. And up first, we have the morning announcements in the evening.
Yes, James. So first up, we're going to talk about federal news. During this first news conference, Biden said that his administration was on track to keep the promise that he made to reopen the majority of elementary and middle schools full-time in person within his first 100 days. However, this doesn't mean that all students will quickly return to classrooms. New federal data shows the national disparities, including large differences by race, as students of color are still learning remotely at much higher percentages than white students. And this disparity is partially driven by where students live, coupled with which families are choosing to stay remote, even if in-person options are offered. Personally, at my school, about half of our families have decided to remain in the remote setting. And just this past month, Biden passed a huge piece of legislation called the American Rescue Plan, which includes a massive infusion of $128 billion for K-12 schools. And this is really expected to impact high poverty districts the most, to target students of color, but also low-income communities, James. So tell us, what's up in state news?
Well, there's a lot going on in state news. So with state news in Tennessee, the American Rescue Plan that Brittany mentioned means that our state is receiving $4 billion in federal funds for K-12 education through 3 pandemic recovery packages. So let's put that into perspective. So that $4 billion is literally more than 2/3 of what the state spends in a single year on our students. That's a lot of money, y'all. Okay, there's a lot that we can do. So hopefully we make some good investments on that money. In Memphis, this could mean over $503 million coming to Shelby County schools and also charter partners as well. Federal law requires a fifth of these investments to go to resources related to learning loss. The rest is addressed to pandemic-related needs with more broad discretion for districts to prioritize. In other news, now we talked about this last episode, the Teachers Discipline Act, which we mentioned, passed through the Tennessee legislature, raising concerns and a few negative eyebrows on the impact that it will have on Black and Brown students and students who are disabled if teachers have a wide variety of ways to interpret on their own what defiant looks like in their classroom. So we'll keep track with this universal referral process throughout this duration of this semester. And then lastly, in an article from Chalkbeat, Tennessee, after a contentious debate over school reopenings in Memphis and Nashville, one lawmaker has filed legislation outlining how Tennessee could take over any district that is falling short of its academic goals, potentially firing its superintendent and replacing elected board members. Opponents question the timing and warn of a power grab in Tennessee's 2 largest and most diverse school systems. That's going to be very interesting. So we'll see where that goes. Brittany, what's going on with that local news?
So let's bring it back down to their local level. So as part of the 3rd grade commitment that everyone is talking about, SCS is moving forward on a plan that was approved back in 2019 to hold 2nd grade students who are behind in reading. This policy directly aligns with the new state mandate, which was passed into law in January, that will require districts to retain 3rd graders who aren't reading proficiently. And this has caused some angst amongst a lot of people, but considering only a quarter of Memphis students are reading on grade level, SCS believes that this will increase our students' chances of really catching up. And so personally, I just believe that this plan will not only help students that are being pushed through from grade to grade, especially in elementary schools, and arriving in middle schools completely behind and unprepared, but I also believe that this plan will ultimately hold parents more accountable and to help them be more invested in their students' education. And then lastly, I want to highlight the parent-focused organization, the Memphis Lift, who's been working alongside SCS and advocacy groups to create a new individualized learning plan for all families. And the purpose of this individualized plan would be to facilitate a conversation guide for parents and teachers to review students' attendance, provide a deeper understanding on reading and math skills, and a breakdown of what grades and test results mean. So instead of just receiving scores, parents will actually get an individualized look at their students. And this guide is scheduled to be released in April, so it's coming up very soon. Personally, I think that these ILPs will be of a great benefit not only to our schools, but also our parents and students. And it'll give a more holistic view and a deeper understanding of where our students are, more than just a number.
Right.
And so with that, this wraps up our morning announcements in the evening. Also, keep a lookout for our Teacher Editions newsletter. After each episode, we'll be linking all of these articles for these headlines if you're interested in reading in full detail the full stories. And now it's time to head over to the Teacher's Lounge. James, what's on today's lunch menu?
Well, I don't know what's on the menu, but what I do know is that I am ready to chew, chat, and eat these topics up on tonight. The doors of the Teacher's Lounge are now open, and I almost say at church for a second. It is Sunday. But joining us tonight are three very special guests who will be sharing their unique perspective on tonight's topic, which is going to be reimagining and redesigning education for the future. In addition to that, our guests will give us a little show and tell. That's right, show and tell. We all remember from elementary school when we brought an object to school, that favorite toy and artifact that we share with our class. And for most of us, that was actually a peak experience. Tonight, we're bringing back the nostalgia by giving our guests an opportunity to do the same as we get to know them beyond the surface before diving into the hot topics on tonight. So, Brittany, who's our first guest?
First up, we have Mr. Brian Ingram, who is the principal at Dunbar Elementary School. Let's give it up, y'all, for Brian.
Hey, guys. How y'all doing?
Hey, how are you?
I am wonderful. Good to see you this evening.
Excellent. It's so great to see you. So let's just get started. Tell us a little bit about yourself, something that the people may not know about you, and what item did you bring for show and tell tonight?
So, Brittany, I am a lifelong Memphian, born and raised, only left for just a few minutes of my life to go to college at MTSU. But I have spent the last 10 years here in Memphis working in education as a teacher, instructional coach, principal resident. And for the last 4 years, I have been a principal with Shelby County Schools. And so that's pretty much me in a nutshell. Hey, Mom, I see you in the comments.
Hey, Mom. Nice. Thank you. And so what did you bring tonight for show and tell?
So for show and tell, I brought this bell. Now, it was actually a gift when I finished my new leaders residency program, but I have an affinity for bells because it made me think of my favorite part of the day, which was recess in school. So I used to love to hear, because I knew that meant like, hey, I can let my hair down, I can go run around, have fun with my friends, which is something I still value to this day, just that free time and just being able to kick back and relax. So that's what I brought this evening.
Thank you so much. That's really cool. That's actually really interesting. So thank you so much for opening up to our audience and sharing a little bit more about yourself. James, who's our next guest?
All right, so next up, I have the pleasure of introducing the very decorated teacher, Miss Arlithia Mackey. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone in the audience virtually, y'all show some love for Miss Arlithia Mackey.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, James. Thank you for that beautiful introduction.
Yes, for a beautiful person on this evening joining us in the lounge. For all of you who don't know, Miss Mackey is a 7th grade ELA teacher at Veritas College Preparatory Charter School right here in Memphis, Tennessee. How are you doing tonight, Miss Mackey?
I'm doing absolutely beautiful. So excited to jump into these topics. I have so many great ideas, and I'm so excited to learn from everybody else that will be joining us tonight.
Well, we are glad that you are here. And before we get this show started, tell us a little bit about yourself, something that the people may not know about you, and what item did you bring for show and tell tonight?
All right, I'm super excited. So, as I said, my name is Arlithia. I am a 7th grade English language arts teacher. I am a proud TFA alum, came here super enthusiastic to serve in the Memphis community. I actually studied Memphis my senior year of undergrad at the University of Florida, go Gators, and really was excited to jump into this topic of education reform in charter schools. A little known fact, well, some people know, I'm actually a native of the Bahamas. So my show and tell item is actually this jar of sand. with sand and shells from the Bahamas. I got this from a family reunion. It was some decor, but that family reunion really grounded me in my heritage, who I am, and really got me to thinking about who I am as a leader. If anybody's familiar with West Indian culture, education is really the center, and that like high expectation and just that rigor and enthusiasm for access and education is really important. So I have two of these. One is in my classroom and one is in my home, and they're both really near and dear to my heart.
Oh, so when all of this mess clears up, when we going to the Bahamas?
Soon. My dad will kill me if I don't come back. Most of my family still lives there, and I go back frequently, but haven't been in quite some time. So I'm really excited to return.
That's amazing. Well, that was an awesome show and tell presentation, and thank you so much for sharing and introducing yourself. Brittany, who's our last guest on tonight?
So Mr. Hendricks will be giving that parent perspective on tonight. He is a senior account executive with iHeartRadio. So let's all give it up for Mr. Hendricks. How are you doing, Mr. Hendricks, tonight?
I'm doing well. I know it says senior account executive. No, that was one course I didn't do well, so I'm a senior account executive. I would be remiss. This is Resurrection Sunday, and I didn't do an Easter speech, but I'm gonna have to make sure I take a picture so I can send this to my mom right quick. Hold on one second. Bam. Okay. All right. I am a proud parent of a 10th grader at White Station High School. I moved to Memphis. This is my 26th year, so I'm a 901 resident by choice. And my artifact actually speaks to where I came from when I got here. My HBCU is Tuskegee University. Very important. I'm a child of an educator, and as a person who volunteers heavily here in Memphis in the school system, I've noticed that it's been a return for some to HBCUs. For those of us who are alums, we actually have always, been accepting. So I'll give that perspective this evening as a parent, as well as HBCU alum.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. We definitely have, I know, a lot of HBCU love going on. So thank you so much for sharing tonight. So it was so great with you opening up to us. So thanks so much. All right, I'm going to kick it over to James.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Brittany, for those warm introductions. It was so interesting learning some personal things about our guest on tonight. So let's go ahead and get ready to jump into tonight's first topic, which is disruption, switching to remote learning. Not everyone or every school system had the same experience in facing this abrupt change. Some schools and systems had stronger collaboration and technology infrastructures, which assisted them in a more rapid response, while others were struggling just to find their path. So I'm going to get ready to open up the floor to ask the first question. So for each of our guests on tonight, all of you will answer this first question on this evening. But I'm going to start it off and kick the baton over to the one and only, let's see who's first, Mr. Hendricks, giving us that parent perspective and parent voice. So Mr. Hendricks, the first question is this. Last month marked a year of unprecedented times that have been unimaginable for all of us. When reflecting on this past year, how has this pandemic impacted you both personally and professionally?
Oh man, tremendously. Professionally, basically what I do is I sell digital and radio and television advertising for the largest media company in America. Here we have 7 radio stations, and we're interactive with events, nightclubs. I do all the entertainment the concerts, so everything shut down. Literally, 48% of my income stopped immediately because I am a commissioned salesperson. So that's the first thing professionally. But as a parent, it was very interesting because even though I have a son, we have a son, I'm a divorced father. We have a son of a 4.2 GPA child. It was still tough that he had to, he is an ambivert, so he had to figure out exactly what to do. And it's been a chore. He runs track, he's in ROTC, and he's in the marching band at White Station.
Come on
so
now.
The problem very rapidly was, okay, Dad, I can't see my friends. I can't see, that was tough. So it tremendously changed everything, but we got through it. We got through it.
That's good. Well, thank you for that perspective. And I like how you saw the opportunities in this, and, you guys didn't let it hold you down. But your son, look, I'm going to praise you as a parent, because we know the students would not be successful if they did not have that parent in the background pushing them and, helping them exceed and, be excellent. So thank you for sharing that perspective. So next up, we're going to answer the same question. So this question is going to go to Ms. Arlithia Mackey. So for you, same question. How has this pandemic impacted you both personally and professionally?
Ooh, wow. This question right here, I think, really pushes me to a level of reflection. First and foremost, this was the first time, believe it or not, that I ever took an unplanned break from school. I think I had to really take a lot of stock in myself mentally and thinking about work-life balance and how much of work consumes my life, opposed to how much my own health, both mentally and physically. Like, our whole narrative as a world changed from productivity to health, both physically and mentally. And I think that was a shell shock for me. I have gone my entire life just thinking about what's the next step and how do I get to that next level. And I think this was the first time I really thought about myself. I was in my home by myself. All my family's either in Florida or the Bahamas. So I really had to regenerate what it means to be a person. I think on a professional level, as a teacher at a small charter school where we kind of fuel everything by ourselves, things took a very hard halt. All of the resources and things that we do for ourselves, we had to reimagine them. I mean, I think a lot of times we talk about the negativity in that, and there were a lot of disadvantages, but I also want to highlight some positive things that came out of that, of just being innovative and pushing the narrative of what it means to be an innovative educator. And so I had a lot of setbacks and a lot of things that I had to reimagine for myself, but I also walked away now kind of feeling strengthened and reinvigorated as an educator and looking forward to just what's next. And I'm so excited for this conversation once again, because I'm so excited to discuss what we're taking from this time and how we can transfer it into the future. So lots.
See, right there, you feeling me right there. I'm about to pass the offering plate around, because look, I can't go after you. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I loved how you highlighted those positive things, because sometimes we can just dwell in all of the negativity, but how are we benefiting? How are we going to look at this so we can move forward? Because life is going to go on. So I like how you had that positive angle. This same question, so thank you, Ms. Mackey. This same question is going to go to, lastly, Principal Brian Ingram. So Brian, how has this pandemic impacted you both professionally and personally?
That's a really, really, really good question. And, for me, James, it was like we started in March of last year with this, hey, we're stronger together. We're going to hunker down. We're going to self-quarantine, and we're going to get on the other side of this. But after like 2 weeks of that, it was like, okay, enough of that. Now we're just going to put the whole world on your device, your cell phone, your computer. And so for me, both personally and professionally, there was no longer a separation of the two. One just was the other. Personal and professional became the same thing. And so for me, as I look back, I have really tried to do the work to differentiate the two and be very intentional about separating the two. And I've been able to do that just quite honestly by leading to my personal strengths and allowing my team to lead to my areas where I am weak. And so just doing that, being more collaborative and working and just really digging into what everybody else is good at and leveraging that, I think is what has helped me to get on the other side of this hump. And so it has definitely impacted me both professionally and personally, but I do believe that I'm better for it as a result of going through that experience.
Come on, distributive leadership. You got teachers out here attesting to your leadership. Now, you're doing it when you got teachers out here praising you. So that is excellent. And I'm not surprised, because you're doing some amazing work for your kids at Dunbar, and they are blessed to have you. So Brittany, what's the next question that we have on tonight? Thank you so much, Principal Ingram.
So the next question actually goes to Ms. Arlithia Mackey. So thinking about when this pandemic first started last spring, which subset of students did you find struggled the most with this disruption in learning? And also, what inequities did the pandemic reveal to you around access, technology, and students' ultimate well-being?
Yeah, so I think with this question, I am a big proponent of, so I'm a family, youth, and community sciences major. So all of this really kind of plays into my understanding of education as the outside focus into the school. And so when I think about the subset of kids that were most impacted, it's not a specific demographic, it's not a specific group of kids, but I think specifically of those individual students with families who were not able to secure guaranteed access right away. Those students who were not able to get consistent care, consistent access, those families. Now, obviously, we know that those groups do exist within certain demographics, but I think within my school, I saw that a lot of kids who just did not have consistent access before the pandemic, that just kind of exasperated during the pandemic. And I think during this time, a lot of the inequities that I've seen highlighted are food access, right? Students having to really rely on other areas to bring food into their house. I've also seen space inequities. I have a lot of kids who struggle to just be able to exist as a student in this virtual world because of space around them, but also just access to resources, access to individuals to support them through this time. Those are all things that I really saw kind of just come to light. And then when we talk about the digital divide is real. And I don't think people really understood it in a practical way. I think it was such a theoretical concept, like, oh, there's a digital divide. You know, some kids don't have access and so they're not able to do this. But when you make all kids have to learn one specific way, those disparities highlight themselves. And so not only I teach English, not only am I teaching students how to write and read, I'm teaching them how to type, how to use their device, how to access a hyperlink, how to draft an email, because everything we knew about life became digitized. And because we had subsets of kids that were kept away from technology in their classrooms consistently for so long, it turned into just a 3-part barrier that is just so hard to navigate. I think about how is this going to perpetuate in the future? Like, a lot of our kids are going to feel that burden of not being able to access their work and access their education because they've been kept away from it so long. So I think those, just in summary, those are just some things. And I think on a social emotional level, that is burdensome. Like, this pandemic was very burdensome. And we can see those kids that just did not have coping skills, that did not have individuals that they can tap into, resources that they can tap into. And maybe they relied on the school for that. At home, that looked a lot different. So those are just a few of the things that I witnessed at my school.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's so multi-layered, dimensional, right? But I agree. I think consistency was the biggest thing that we saw in all the disparities that really caused a disruption in whether it was access, technology, food, social and emotional health. So thank you so much for sharing your perspective. So now I'm going to kick it over to James and Brian Ingram.
All right, so now we're bringing it back over to Principal Brian Ingram to have that principal talk. So both you and I are in administration, so it is not easy, but it's so rewarding. And the question that I wanted to ask you is, when the pandemic first hit, there's a lot of things that are in our control, and then there are a lot of things that are not in our control, okay? So as a leader, what was in your control when the pandemic first hit? And then how did you manage that? And then additionally, how did you tend to the well-being of your staff and students when all of this first took place last year?
So it kind of happened in waves, James. You know, the first thing for me in terms of the locus of control was around remaining connected to our families and to our students and trying to be that wraparound support system for our babies as best we could. So in the beginning, that looked like me personally. I delivered food baskets to families. I worked with some of our community partners to mail gift vouchers to families' homes. Even in the early days, we even utilized Zoom. That was before we switched over to Teams, and we were able to provide some support to our families. But what was not within my control was that most of my students didn't have access to devices outside of a cell phone. So it was really hard in the beginning to connect to our families. I'd say we probably connected to maybe a third of them on a regular basis from March until May. But in terms of well-being of staff and students, that was my number one priority. Nothing else mattered at that point. And so I did things like we did our virtual dance parties every Friday that I did. I did mini lessons on YouTube where I would teach little lessons on. Now, I knew they were based on standards that the kids were struggling with, but nobody else knew that. It was just fun cartoons to stay connected. And so for us, it was really around making sure that everybody was just okay. And to be honest, I feel like that is what is paying the dividends in this school year. Because if we thought March to May 2020 was a lot, we were in for a whirlwind when we hit August 2020 and really tried to kick this thing in full gear. And because of those connections that we made with families, because they knew we cared, because my staff knew we cared, we were certainly able to overcome a lot of the other challenges with attendance and students staying logged into class. And, you know, we even had, we have grandparents that will come up to the school and like, look, now I don't know how to log into this class, but you show me how to do it and I'm gonna make sure Junior is on there. And so that's how we tried to move some of the things that were not within our control into that locus of control.
That is amazing. And I think it was Maya Angelou who said, people don't remember, you know, a lot of things, but people do remember how you made them feel. And for you, you hit the nail on the head, like making sure that people's well-being is a priority always supersedes everything else, because if people know that you care about them, then that is going to build that relationship and that trust needed to allow them to lead, you know, for you to lead them. And it's obviously showing dividends with your students and your staff. So thank you for that insight, and it is much appreciated. Brittany, help give us that parent voice on tonight on this last subtopic.
Yes. So lastly, coming to the stage is Mr. Hendricks. So Mr. Hendricks, with all the chaos going on initially at the beginning of the pandemic, structure was key in returning to some sense of normality. So what structures did you put in place for your son at home to support with remote learning? And what supports also did you receive from his school?
First off, Principal Ingram and Miss Mackey are just killing it with this plan. So let me give them love off top. Yes. Exactly, Snap. The most dangerous word though is structure, and that was the issue. I think so. Being a parent who's active, we already had structures in place, but the way that we are raising, and we as divorced parents, the way we're raising him was, his peer group has to have access that he has as well. So being 26 years in Memphis, and just follow me, what I realized is a lot of people, we be quick to say, don't let the South Memphis or North Memphis come out of me, even though they may not live there anymore. So, but now we had this pandemic and everybody's equal. So it was very interesting, even though my child's at White Station, we get our haircut, we go to church in South Memphis, get a haircut in White Haven. What I saw was a little bit different than what Ms. Mackey said, in the sense that it wasn't just having the devices. The digital divide has actually been the use of technology, how to use it. I was a parent that hated my child like this all the time with the phone, get a baby 1, 2, 3 years old, a phone. Now it's a situation where they need to use that phone for education. And as parents, we never really were plugged in to do that. So the digital divide is greater than just having devices in hand, but us as parents actually having structure. So to answer your question, we already have structure to begin with. So his desk area was already set. You know, I didn't allow him to actually do classes in his bedroom. Your bedroom is your place of refuge. So we went ahead and created a separate place for him. That way, when he got out of school, he can go to his bedroom and actually enjoy his bedroom. He's coming home. You got to think about it. These kids have been in the same place all day. So a lot of parents, unfortunately, if you give them the laptop and take to the bedroom, they have no place of refuge. We couldn't leave anywhere. So we had to put that structure in place. Second, White Station, if I remember correctly, had 2,525 students enrolled. So that's either the largest school or the second largest school in Memphis. Imagine 2,500 kids, that normally seeing each other are no longer seeing each other. So the cool part about what my school did, our school did, was they already text you, they're constantly involved in everything else, but they told us as parents, help another parent. So the reality is a lot of parents don't want to be told something, regardless of age, but this pandemic showed us that, hey, you need to be told by another parent. So, hey, because it makes no sense. My child is a 4.2, and he has access to the same thing your child is doing, and it's worse. It doesn't make any sense. So the school was straight, but what hurt me is I'm a parent that volunteers at all the other schools. So like I would love to go to Dunbar and help with Principal Ingram lets me, but I do a lot at Brewster Elementary. I do some other schools here, KIPP and some other schools. I was unable to do that. So helping my educators, I couldn't do it. So actually that was the hardest part for a parent like me, because my son, praise God, 2023, he's going to graduate high school, but I need his peers. I need kids at Tresvant. I need kids at Kingsbury. I need class of 2023 at every high school that when he goes to college, he has partners, or he goes to trade school, has partners in the military. That's something that we as parents don't realize is bigger than just our child. And so that's the structure that I already had in place, and it hurt it. The pandemic hurt that structure.
Wow. Thank you so much. What I think I also heard you say is it's not just about access to technology, because, for some students, they've always had it, but it's also about how they're consuming it, right? Because they've always been consuming it.
Yeah, see, Miss Mackey's hit it on the head. The consistency is what I even wrote it down, the way to use technology, because especially as Black people, let me speak. I've been Black 47 years, will be 47 years, July 17th. So I've been Black a long time. So the excuse of us Black and brown people not having access is one thing, but how we use it effectively and under the direction of our educators, that's the issue. If you didn't listen to your child's teacher beforehand, when it comes now to do it, it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. So we need to go back to embracing our educators even more. And it shows now that we were not doing it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that parent voice and perspective.
You are.
So that wraps up topic 1. Wow, that was juicy. That was hot, James.
It was fine. Look, Dejuan, you ain't gonna never be disappointed. Look, that comes next today.
Wow.
All right, so let's go ahead and move over to topic 2, the transition to reopening schools. The challenge to reopen schools has been very complex. The realities of meeting health and safety needs while also addressing those who are underserved and marginalized as a result of economic collapse seems to be more than enough to manage. Add into the mix the priority of regenerating a stalled learning system, and the task seems to be impossible. There is no blueprint for reopening schools during an unprecedented pandemic. So let's talk about the reopening of schools. Most schools across the country are engaged in a hybrid model of instruction. So just like we did with the previous subtopic, this first question is going to go to each of our guests on tonight. And I'm going to first start off with Principal Ingram. So this first question, so we wanted Rob, we want the real deal, and I know Brian ain't gonna have no problem doing that. So this first question goes to Mr. Principal Ingram. What is working, what is not working, and what needs to change with the hybrid model of instruction?
So for what is working, I think there is a portion of our student population that goes unacknowledged. There are some students that are really thriving in the virtual space. And I can attribute that to the autonomy and flexibilities that are allowed, where you don't have anyone saying you got to sit up straight, or if you're not writing a certain type of way, students are allowed to have more personality. And sometimes that comes through even in the little Teams windows where you see. So I do see that there are some major strengths when it comes to virtual instruction, because it does allow for differentiation. It does allow for teachers to pull students into what we would call a small group, but pull them into a breakout session while other students are still working, not having to worry about supervision. One of the things that I think is just being completely transparent, not working, some of the pieces with technology. I don't know if we completely thought out learning management systems for students. So one thing I know for me, we have really done a lot of work here as a team at Dunbar trying to figure out what's the best way. So we have invested in Seesaw. We have teachers who use Nearpod to give students different options to access their work. So if Teams is having one of its days and being temperamental, then we can still get the job done because we have a learning management system in place here for Dunbar. I think the last part of your question, what needs to change? The expectation that children and adults can sit in front of a computer from 8 to 3 is just not realistic. And I think we are missing some of the long-term health issues that might be caused with vision and headaches, things of those natures. And we could really utilize our time in a different way to better support our students within that 8 hours versus just being committed to being in front of a screen because that's the way it was.
You better preach. Look. Ooh, you know what? Yeah. If you're just tuning in, let me wrap up what Principal Ingram said on what's working, what's not working, and what needs to change. First of all, everyone is not doing horrible at virtual learning. Some students are thriving. A lot of students are thriving. Even at my school, Principal Ingram, I have a lot of students who may have had some, behavior challenges or some specific things that they need. Their parents are loving this, so we can't not attest to that and share that. You also talked about just students and where they are individually, like with the trainings. Yes, last year we were thrown into this and we really didn't have a choice. But what are we going to do moving into this summer and this fall to really get parents and students acclimated? Because the technology is still changing to this day. And then the part where I'm like, wait a minute, been in front of a computer screen all day, that's not going to work. And what personally, what I don't like is that a lot of folks who don't have experience in education are the ones who are making these decisions. And personally, I wear glasses. I know you wear glasses. I don't know about you, but I come home and my eyes, I'm like, goodness gracious, I got a headache. Because you're in front of the screen all day. It is a lot. So mental health, that well-being is going to be a continuous theme that is going to come up on tonight. So Principal Ingram, thank you so much for sharing that. Collection plates coming around. So next up, same question. We're going to have that parent voice, Mr. Dejuan Hendriks. Same question for you as a parent, you and your son. What is working? What is not working? And what needs to change as it relates to the hybrid model of instruction?
I was biting really just, oh my gosh. Real quick though, come here. This is my child. Smile away. All right.
Hey.
All right. If you're a daddy, you got to do it. All right. So here's the reality. A lot of parents did not like me because I said something very vocal because I'm a child educator. No human being can stand in front of a screen and sit in front of the screen from 8 to 3, 8 to 12, and not have some social, emotional, and mental anguish of some sort, right? But there's a flip side to that. When I would tell my peer group, other parents, don't give your child that tablet and have them doing like this when they're 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and those same parents didn't want to listen. But then we take those children, give them to educators, expect educators to teach them. What a child been doing for the first 3 or 4 years, 5 years of their life.
Yeah.
So sometimes we live in the moment. It's definitely not working. It's not working at all. I have a high performing child. Okay. I know as parents, we get scared and living in the moment. This is not the greatest pandemic we've ever had, nor will it ever be. Okay. AIDS is the greatest one. HIV was the greatest pandemic we've had. The reality is, yes, we had to change. Western culture changed. I'm not arguing that. I'm knocking that. But if the argument, because I knew grown folks, we don't want to be told to be in a box. We don't want to do that. So how could people who have not even pay rent, mortgage, they can't earn their own way in life, how's the expectation for them to do that? So the challenge has become, use my son's school. I'm dropping him off tomorrow morning. He has 2,525 students, they say, registered. It's less than 200 children in the school. Okay. Academic performance at this school, I've heard, is one of the best in Tennessee. It's having some challenges. There's some children who are going to do well regardless of what the environment put into, right? But being an educator is more than just classroom and read the 3 R's, right? It's the social. I mean, everybody remembers their third grade teacher. Everybody remembers their principal Ingram. Everybody remembers Miss Mackey from the Bahamas that showed us seashells. You know what I'm saying? So that social interaction that we love from teachers, we're not getting. So we have to move forward. Listen, my baby, I just showed my baby. I love my son. Don't want him to ever get sick, but he will get sick. Okay. And we have to get through that. This is tough because and my last statement, and this is going to be controversial, and I love to say this, we cannot afford to have 45,000 Black children uneducated in Memphis, Tennessee. We can't. So at the end of the day, traditional education has been working. Y'all went to school for it. Y'all administrators, y'all teachers. Clearly it works. Traditional education works with parents getting in there and handling our business. But man, listen, what's the last part of the question? What needs to change?
What needs to change? What needs to change?
Parents we need to support y'all more. It's just because there's no way around it. This is the time to actually be more involved as a parent. I need to be texting. I need to be, look, I got one teacher, my son's English teacher, shout out to her. She texts, she's like, not just on the remind or the only, she texts personally. And my child makes a 98 in her class. It's just that as a parent, man, Principal Ingram, what do I need to be doing? Ms. Mackey, what do I need to be doing? That's the thing. That's the only way that you change the model, as Principal Ingram said, people who did not or not in education created this situation.
Yeah.
Right? But such is life.
Yeah.
Such is life. We all have to adjust. But our children didn't ask to be here. So as parents, we're the only thing that's definite. Parents, think about it. Educators are not definite. Y'all can choose to have a contract or not. You go to school or not, whatever else. Parents, by virtue of conception and children being born, we're the only consistent portion of school, right? So if parents don't do anything, no matter what effective educators we have, man, we ain't supporting y'all.
Come on.
It is what it is. So, man, it's just the model itself. I don't want to spend time and energy arguing over in-person versus hybrid. Is in-person parenting versus hybrid parenting is the question. Because think about it, and I'm gonna end with this. How many of y'all students, teachers on this chat at a parent-teacher conference, they don't have in-parent teacher. Now, we at a parent-teacher conference, everybody could be Zoom. We could be teaching. Parents still didn't show up. Tell me if I'm lying. Parents still didn't show up.
You know what? Well, what I am gonna say is what you said. Parents are the number one teacher. You hit the nail on the head. I almost started to get up and run around. The first number one and first teacher, right? And I tell my teachers at my school, like, look, we're co-parenting because once they have us that full year, we're giving them back. That parent is gonna always be that teacher. So how can you build relationships, like you said? That social connectedness has disappeared, but we have to find ways to hold ourselves accountable, not just the school, but the parents too. And I made a post about this a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, look, the school can only do so much. And I get it. It's been challenging for everybody, but everybody has to play their part. So Mr. Dejuan Hendriks, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm going to kick this same question over to Miss Mackey. So Miss Arlithia Mackey, same question. What is working? What is not working? And what needs to change in terms of the hybrid model of instruction?
let me just say before I jump in, I wish I can copy and paste this teacher lounge into every school because this transparency, authentic conversation is just so needed because I think we walk on eggshells when we address the issues. And I'm just so thankful that we have a platform to do this. From a teacher's perspective, I don't have kids, so everything that I'm saying is from either just the academic or just the in-person as a teacher perspective. So it's so great to hear from a leader. It's so great to hear from the community and from a parent. But I think as a teacher, what has been working, actually, I have seen a subset of my students that are just taking their time. And I think it took a while for me to figure out an equation on what is an acceptable amount of assignments, right? At first, I think we were just clicking buttons and assigning, you just need to work on this in this amount of time. But I think once I've hit a groove and what's an appropriate developmental level of work for a student to complete within a day, I've really seen a lot of my students be able to really dive into that, take their time, and use their resources. I'm a very big advocate of, if the resource is there, use it. And I think sometimes if our students don't have certain access points in the classroom, in a digital environment, I was able to direct my students, hey, this is how you use this resources. Baby, when you get to college, don't nobody care if you use the online dictionary, okay? Use it, okay? So I've been seeing some students be able to thrive because they're able to have access to resources maybe that in a traditional sit-down setting they might not have. I think also advocacy has been something I've been very proud with some of my students. Being able to use, even in a discrete environment, we use Zoom at my school, we don't use Teams, we use Zoom. So even in any virtual, video conference setting, that private chat feature has been gold for some of my babies who would not have raised their hand during class. So, me thinking about moving forward, how am I going to use that concept of discrete feedback and discrete opportunities of advocacy? Yes, we want our babies to raise their hand in class, but as a middle school teacher, we know that they're concerned about their physical, appearance and, how they're being perceived by some of their peers. So I've been seeing my kids who even seemed reluctant before dive in and engage in that chat feature to say, hey, Ms. Mackey, I don't understand. Can you break it down? Can you give me an example? Yes, maybe I can. Okay. So that has been a breakthrough for me with some of my babies, and I'm trying to use that as a model of this is how we can transform and use what we're learning here to be better. I also think an advantage is being able to develop some 21st century skills. I think that I've touched on this a little bit before, but a lot of my babies want to do a lot of career paths that require 21st century skills that are not easily assessed through a Common Core standard or TN Ready, okay? And because I've had this opportunity to teach with 21st century skills at the forefront of my brain because they were necessary, I think a lot of my students are finding different ways to engage because of the way that I've been able to format my classroom. I know that Principal Ingram had talked about using Nearpod and some of these other learning opportunities. They've kind of created this avenue of gamifying and digitizing instructional resources to increase engagement. And it has. Some of my kids have still been disengaged, but I've seen this niche of kids that are really pushing the bar of being innovative in their own work, but also educators doing the same thing. And that's been exciting. Now, I think kind of on the flip side, what's not been working, truancy and accountability is just
come on. Let's be honest.
I cannot sweep that under the rug. I unfortunately lost touch with a lot of those babies that I think being in person was the only kind of touch point that I've had day to day with them. I've tried a lot of different strategies of reaching out, text messages. Baby, I've been on Instagram. Where you been, friend? I need to see your face. I miss you.
By any means necessary.
Any means. We've been able to get some other kids tapped in, but that has been a very big concern because if they're not with us and we call home and the parent's not home or they're somewhere else, where are they? Where are they? We have a lot of disengaged in the city of Memphis pre-pandemic, but also just the pandemic has created that issue. And I also think that unfortunately, and this might ruffle a few feathers, I think I stray that line of being sensitive about turning things in and being in communication and meeting with all these different things. I'm a very flexible person, but my scholars know, and the families that I've worked with, I'm very firm, but I'm very fair. And so I think that we're kind of missing, now that we're a year in and we're trying to figure things out. Like, I think a conversation about accountability needs to come in. I've had a baby that has not logged into class for 3 quarters, and mama wants to know now, why is she failing? Yeah, what? Do this. We were going through this. I understand, man, but baby girl has not tapped in. She has not communicated with me. I have not seen anything submitted. And so that is kind of what's not working and how do I approach that. And I think this is a question. Parents, like, how do I approach that? I want to be sensitive, but also I have a job that your baby is getting what he needs in order to move on. Hang your shot. Well, she's an excellent educator at Veritas. Love you, girl. So like those things that I really, really think that we need to make some traction on as a community. And I'm tired of things being disjointed. This school doing this. What's working then? Give us a theory of practice. And finally, my last plug-in point, I think, we need to, I think what needs to change, building and normalizing. We're using this word a lot now in culture. Normalize strong school to home to community structures of support that's not just popping up during a pandemic. Why are we waiting for things to be during a pandemic that we're trying to figure out where the babies are in, whether families have access to internet for their kids to even work on homework? Right? Why are we waiting for this time to and where do we find all that money to do that? So these are things that what needs to change is this conversation about how these multiple levels of people communicate. It should not be disjointed. It should be a full circle. This is how we're supporting this baby in their K through 12 and whatever they decide to do moving forward. So.
All right, come on now, firm but fair. I'm just letting you know right now, I'm coming to do a class visit. So I'm going to get ready to open up that calendar because I'm coming to observe. But I like how you talked about that equity. I like how you talked about access and the advocacy. And like somebody said, no, we need to ruffle some feathers sometimes. We got to talk, have the hard conversations. Kids are not going to learn if they're not showing up to class. I've had several conversations with other high school administrators, and they don't know what to do either. Where we've had kids who you're not logged in for the whole semester, but the week before exams, you want to log in, and then people don't understand why they're failing. You hadn't showed up. You can't get a grade for what you didn't do. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to work like that once you graduate. And for me, and this is another episode, we're continuing to push kids along to get a degree or to get a high school diploma, but then they go out in the real world and they don't have any skills to back up that diploma that was supposed to set them up for success. But that's another episode. But what I'm going to do is kick it over to Brittany so we can stay on topic. Thank you, Ms. Mackey, for your commentary.
Oh my gosh, James, that was amazing. Like, that was such great comments from all of our guests tonight. I have to shout out my dad, Donald Harrell, whose comment came up, and Mr. Hendricks, he addressed that, and Mr. Hendricks, you are up next, Mr. Hendricks. So shout out to my dad, Donald Harrell, for that. Yes, kids are definitely spending a lot of time in front of TVs playing video games, but then when it comes to school, we definitely have an issue.
Okay, Fortnite and everything else.
Exactly.
TikTok.
And that's what I address, because kind of like my dad. My dad's a retired principal from Jackson, Mississippi. So yeah, I trust me, I feel it 100%.
Definitely. So this next question goes to you, Mr. Hendricks. So from that parent perspective, in your opinion, it's a 2-part question. The first part, what is your definition of a high quality education from the parent's lens?
Oh, wow. High quality, man, that's so loaded. I would say high quality to me, as a parent, man, access to a robust curriculum, access to great educators, and options beyond graduating from K through 12. I think that's off the top of my head now. So
yeah. So access and options, right?
Right, because a robust curriculum, and the reason I say that robust is because a lot of people make the argument this school is better than that school, but every school is accredited by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. So they have equal accreditations. You know what I'm saying? So the curriculum's the same. But that second piece, man, great educators. I was raised by one. My ex-wife's mother died for 35 years, and then her aunt. So, I think that second piece, those who can get the curriculum from the paper to the students' minds, and then third is what we do after. I think I heard Ms. Mackey say something about going, or Mr. Johnson say something going after the fact. The diploma, people will say, "Oh, it wasn't worth anything." Well, if you just got pushed along, you didn't actually get the full benefit of the high quality education, because if you had access or understood the access to the great teachers we have, because I'm telling you, everybody has access to great teachers. Every school in SCS, they're great educators everywhere. It's no way around that. So off the top of my head, it would be, like I say, curriculum, robust curriculum, access to great educators, and then the ability and the options after post-graduation. That's when you have a high quality education, if you do well afterwards.
That's really good. So now that SCS has returned to in-person learning, parents have more choices than ever before. And as a parent who has experienced both remote and in-person learning, how has your experience aligned to your definition of that high quality education that you just gave us?
Okay, well, the curriculum didn't change, so I'm still on topic, right? Still got great educators, right? So my job as a parent is the situation. Right. You see what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, it's funny. How could you not be on a Teams call with a teacher now? Let's say you can't get off work or anything else to make it to parent-teacher conference or whatever. Now, everything we do, we shop on Amazon online. We do everything online. I think your dad just said we in front of the computer all the time, right? So the argument, one thing this pandemic has done, the argument of access, man, I can talk to a teacher pretty rapidly. I can know what's going on with my child instantly. Right. I can sit and have my child right here and look dead at Miss Batson, and we're gonna talk about what's going on. So high quality education didn't change. I would argue that point as a parent. It did not change.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that perspective. That's very interesting. So now we're going to toss it over to James and Arlithia for our next question.
Are you still there? To delete this message, press 7. To save it in the archives, press...
Can't hear you, James.
And you know what's funny? They get on me all the time at work. They be like, "You are on mute. You are on mute." Actually, all the time. I'm gonna get it together. I'm gonna get it together. But as you know, hybrid learning has its pros and its cons. Some teachers have reported feeling that they're only covering a fraction of the material and doing twice the work. It can feel like they are just trying to keep their heads above water. So as a teacher, with that perspective that you have, what is a piece of advice that you can share with teachers who are just trying to juggle it all during the hybrid learning process and find balance? And then the second part to that is, what does self-care look like for you so that teachers don't burn themselves out?
Yeah, so there are so many things I could say. I could write a whole book. I think when I'm thinking about just managing hybrid learning, I think about what's important, right? It's important that we have the academic opportunities, that we're connecting with our students. So as an educator, it's really important that you're thinking about your class and thinking about what needs to be accomplished and what can be sacrificed, right? There are just certain things that we've done out of tradition as a school to make the school day run. And now that we are in a place of being more innovative, we can start to think about what's priority here in this child's development as a learner and as a person, and what can be done away with until we're back to a place of normalcy. So I always urge educators to approach it in that way. What does this child need to learn and be able to do today to be able to get the bigger picture or to move forward? I think if we're thinking just about balance on a teacher, level. And in the beginning, this is the first time that I've, like I said, taken a break and had to step back and learn myself as a person. And I think a few things come to mind when I think about what I've learned in self-care and just being a person as an educator is knowing my non-negotiables, both personally and professionally.
Come on.
I used to be the yes girl. You need me to do what? I'm going to do it. You need me to do this? I'm there. And now it's like, hold on, boss. I need this moment. I also think be convicted about it. Don't be the person that writes it down in the beginning of the school year and say, hey, I'm not working after this unless it's this. Be very, very intentional and very convicted about your convictions. Okay. I also think find people and don't be afraid to lean on them. Being in isolation as an educator sounds like, hey, I'm just here to do my job, but it can be very toxic and daunting.
Can you say that one more time for the people in the back? Because I had this debate with somebody yesterday, and they said, well, all the geniuses of the world, they created things in isolation. That ain't how it works. Can you say that one more time for the folks in the back? Say that one more time.
I sure can. Find your people. Your people don't have to be everybody in the building, okay? Everybody ain't for you, and you ain't for everybody. And that's fine. But find your people and lean on them. And I promise you, the way you show up and the way they show up and the way the work shows up will teach you a lot differently, okay? I also think don't reinvent the wheel. I'm so proud of all the educators that just found all these great ways of doing stuff, and they were just, on TikTok and we don't need all that sometimes. Don't reinvent the wheels. Lean on other educators. Lean on what's there because things have worked and things will continue to work. Put your own twist on it. Last thing, close your computer. Baby, close your computer. The work will be there.
It ain't going nowhere.
And I also think, last thing, self-care for me, I think laying down. I'm in love with my bed. That's bestie, okay? Watching some sports, a good show, a good cup of coffee or an adult beverage here or there. Not on
Come on.
And I think connecting with nature has been big for me during the pandemic.
Yes.
I've manifested some anxiety for myself, I think, during this pandemic, and I think I've been finding all these ways. I've been on computer researching, and the one thing that I think that worked for me is getting outside the house and breathing in some good air. Taking space, and that mindfulness is the word that I always use as like a buzzword for myself. I'm mindful, but being actually mindful in things like when I say I'm closing my computer, I'm being mindful of that, and I'm going outside, I'm getting my book, and I'm zoning in, and I'm focusing, and my mind thanks me a lot with that.
Come through nature and come through. When you say find your people, look, your tribe is your vibe. Find your people and stick to them. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives on that hybrid learning. And I'm going to toss back over to Brittany for the next question. She said, close that laptop. Close it up.
Maybe because it's going to haunt you.
Look, it's the closed laptop for me.
So this next question goes to Brian Ingram. So Brian, one of the biggest challenges facing us in hybrid learning has been student engagement. It can be a challenge to keep both students who are physically present in the classroom and those who are learning remotely as engaged as one another in order to deliver an equal learning experience. Learners will not learn when they're uncomfortable or contribute when they're self-conscious. And we know that emotion is the gatekeeper of motivation, cognition, and also student engagement. And we also know that well-being and belonging are all intimately related. So with that being said, what should schools be doing in order to ensure that student engagement remains high for all students during hybrid learning? And also, is that even realistic at this time?
Ooh, that's a loaded question, Brittany. And again, I think the word of the hour is ruffling feathers, and I'm just going to be honest. I don't think that is realistic, and I'm going to tell you why. There are some situations that are well beyond what we can control in our space as educators. I cannot be the breadwinner for the households for my children. I cannot be the sole internet provider for the households that we serve. And I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And so we have to be realistic that our families, even before the pandemic, were dealing with some things that if we had to do it for one day, we would lose our minds. And so when you compound that with a pandemic, I think the furthest thing from their minds is student engagement. Not that I am not invested in education, not that I don't think it's important, but if I have to make a decision between making sure the lights are going to stay on and you logging into class, I'm probably going to go with keeping the lights on. And so I don't think that's realistic. And I think we really have to rethink what engagement looks like. There should be a different path for students who are in situations like that. And so someone might say, we provided devices, we provided hotspots for families. But again, if I'm not having basic needs met, we still have children that are homeless. We have children that do not have working utilities. We have parents that are unemployed. So there are a lot of things that we have to do as school leaders to make sure that we can connect. So one of the things we do here is that for those parents who are experiencing certain things that are prohibiting kids from being logged in, we provide them with the same learning access, but on paper. And those parents can still reach, as Dejuan said so eloquently, it's no excuse for not reaching the teacher. And so those parents can call from a landline phone. They may be able to call from a neighbor's home, and we don't have to solely depend on that. And so I just think in order for us to engage all students at this particular point, we have to be flexible and we have to be innovative so that we can get people what they need and really meet them where they are.
Yes, I think flexibility is key. I don't think there's one mold that's going to fit every single home, as you said. And to your point, exactly, when you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I can't worry about whether or not I've turned in an assignment and I don't have food on the table. It's just
absolutely,
I can't put the cart before the horse. It just can't happen. So thank you so much, Brian, for that perspective. So now we're going to kick it over to topic 3, reimagining future deep learning. James, let's jump right in.
All right, so our last subtopic on tonight is reimagining and redesigning education for our students. So even before the pandemic, there was readiness building for a new system of learning. The current system had stalled, and the pandemic vividly exposed our systematic inability to optimize the use of technology and truly ensure equity, well-being, and quality of learning. Education reform has been high on the agenda for many public schools, but has focused narrowly on literacy, numeracy, and high school graduation rates without addressing the holistic needs of students in an increasingly unpredictable global pandemic. Let's jump right into our first question for this last subtopic that we have on tonight. And this first sub question is going to go to Principal Brian Ingram. All right. So Principal Brian Ingram, the first question is going to go to you. And the question is, how would you reimagine and redesign education for the future, and what will your blueprint look like?
I definitely think that, when I think about K-12, I think we don't really get into options until we get into middle school. You kind of get to pick electives, and then when you get to high school, you pick even more classes. You pick your path, college, university, or you're going to go the technical route. I think that we should start with options earlier. There should be a path, and of course, parents will play an integral role in this, but allowing our children to pick options. Like we said earlier, virtual works for some kids. So why do we not have a path for those children that is working for in elementary and on into middle and high? I think we also have to reimagine some of our policies and expectations. So as we move into a more virtual landscape, is it really necessary to have 18 assignments that are due for a semester, or could we look at the quality and the content of said assignments and reduce the number of assignments so that we can really assess student learning, give teachers more opportunities to give feedback, and give students an opportunity to really focus on what's most important? And so I just think all around we can really rethink some things to better fit the 21st century learner and truly make children be college and career ready.
That is excellent. And I love how you talked about quality over quantity giving students all of these assignments, and they don't have opportunities to even get feedback on the assignments, let alone the teachers getting quality feedback on their instructions. So I think those are two great ways to redesign education as we're moving forward, because we're all literally still moving the buck as we speak. So thank you for that insight onto that. So the next question is going to go to Mr. Hendricks. Well, same question. So Mr. Hendricks, how would you reimagine and redesign education, and what would that blueprint look like for you?
I guess I may be considered radical because I will get the educators from the past simply because it's a special type of educator who actually had to be raised in segregated schools, but then teach in integrated schools.
Wow.
What you will find is they, both Black, white, Asian, and Hispanic, have a perspective that will assist us with the current situation we have now, because we now have re-isolated the school districts, even though we're public. And again, it has to be educators. So I need more people who are in education to actually design education for the future, and less people who are not in education to design education for the future. So if you ask me how to redesign it, that's what you would have to do off top. So the blueprint, and I'll finish with this, I know we're short on time. The blueprint really is like this. Too many times we spend too much time worrying about the bathroom in the second floor bathroom in the house, instead of actually the unsexy part of looking at the blueprints of how to build a house. So the reality is we come with whiteboards, we come with new smart boards for the teacher, all these things to put in the classroom. We never asked the teachers if they wanted it.
That part.
Okay. B, let me explain something to you. My child is in there studying Mandarin, okay? Chinese, all right? Let me explain something to you. I can't help with his homework. This ain't gonna happen. Okay.
No, I ain't gonna help with that. Yeah. I can do that.
So I'm dependent on the educator tremendously, right? When we changed the Common Core, it was tough for us because I got my son in trouble at White Station Middle School because I told me he was doing his homework wrong. Eureka math. Okay, when they changed that. So what happened for Black parents, and I'm just ruffling feathers, for Black parents, we had no ability to actually help you with your homework. So once you change and do a totally different way, a totally different system, children who are already at risk, you know, those college educated parents can't even help our children at this point. So when you're looking at people who are actually educators, an educator didn't make that decision. I know it for a fact. I know it for a fact. An educator in the classroom did not make that decision. So how Dejuan Hendriks would do it is to do what worked when we went from Jim Crow, or even before Jim Crow, with one-room schoolhouses were educated Black people tremendously. My HBCU did that. So that's how I would do it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Look, y'all better take some notes. And last but not least, with this same question, Miss Arlithia Mackey, for you, how would you reimagine and redesign education for the future, and what would your blueprint look like?
Oh, so many great things have already been said. So I will kind of just resonate with some of those things. I think so. First and foremost, I am a very proud product of Broward County Public Schools in Fort Lauderdale, Florida area. My mom put me on a school bus at the age of 5, turning 6 years old, kindergarten, to go to a magnet school that was outside of my city, because my neighborhood school just didn't have access to the science and technology program. And I think when Mr. Ingram talks about giving us opportunities at young ages to tap into some of those areas that we call the magnet programs here, they're optional programs. I think giving students experiences early on that are not just centered on the primary subjects. Now, obviously, those things need to be taught, but we also need to go ahead and just plug in students to understanding other areas of life. How do you understand technology at a young age in ways that can be expanded upon in middle school and high school, that can turn into a career, that can turn into a college, major, things like that. When I did everything I was supposed to do. I was like Mr. Hendricks' son. I was tapped into everything at my school. I graduated with really high GPA. I had a 5.0 at one time. Did everything. Got onto the campus of the University of Florida. Didn't know 80% of the majors that were even available. And those majors were high profitable majors that if someone would have given me access to maybe understand them, that could have been an opportunity path for me. So when I think about designing a school or a system, I'm thinking about what opportunities are maybe some of our affluent counterparts being exposed to. How do some of them know about, like obviously some of their parents or loaders of communities that they have access or plug points, but some of them are learning those things in schools while some of the kids that look like me aren't. So I'm thinking about giving access to all students to that more advanced hybrid models. Like we've done it. It's been floated around. It's working some places. Let's make those schools a practice, and let's make that an opportunity for those students that are flourishing and thinking about wanting to do this more. Because if we're thinking about some career paths, people are working from home full time. My mama working from home full time, and she loves it, and she does not want to retire. But just thinking about those different experiences, 21st century learning, we still need our basic levels of, just like Mr. Hendricks said, like we still need our basic levels of firm but fair education in those areas of, the reading, the writing, the math, the sciences, the humanities. But we also need to be plugging in and educating our students earlier on, giving them field experiences. My magnet school out in the Everglades. We were in the Everglades. I remember I cut my finger on a sawgrass and learned that in the inside of it is actually a little, the little cotton material. I can clean it up. I would have learned that from a textbook. I might have read it, but experiencing that was a world of difference. When I was my first ever encounter with teaching in San Francisco, shout out to Breakthrough in San Francisco. I got to visit EA Sports in YouTube.
Wow.
7th grade students that got to go on that field trip. My first baby, she's shout out to Inspire. She is a sophomore now at Howard University, and she's an engineering major. You know what I mean? So those are formative experiences that we need to give our babies early on.
Oh, come on, Miss Mackey. I need to be a student so I can be in your classroom again. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The Teacher's Lounge has been lit. It has been off the chain. The honest dialogue, the honest feedback, the authenticity, the realness, the voice of a school leader, the voice of a teacher, the voice of a parent. Y'all came and y'all showed up and y'all showed out today. Brittany, do you have anything else you want to share on this panel? They didn't come to play today.
They did not come to play. They brought the heat. They also brought just some very authentic and honest reflections. So thank you guys so much for joining us tonight.
So everyone who is watching, we need you to do one thing really quickly. Take some time in that chat and let's give a round of applause to all of our special guests who came out with us on tonight and just killed it. Principal Ingram, Dejuan Hendriks, we got Arlithia Mackey killing in the teaching game. Y'all show them some love in the chat and thank them for coming out and sharing their time on a Sunday evening to educate those folks who may not be inside education. Y'all give a round of applause. Well, that is going to conclude and wrap up our Teacher's Lounge segment. And I'm going to say this, don't be a stranger because we're going to be calling y'all again soon. But thank each of you for coming out tonight. And it was truly an honor to be able to be in dialogue with each of you. Y'all have a wonderful evening, and we're definitely going to be staying connected.
Thank you.
All right, Brittany, our next segment, kicking it over to you.
All right, so that wraps up the Teacher's Lounge. We are now jumping into our Principals List segment where we get to share some bright spots. I'm so excited to share this bright spot tonight, especially with everything that's going on. I'm so honored that we get to recognize those educators in our community and nationwide that are doing some incredible work inside and outside of our schools. So this month, James, we have the distinct pleasure of recognizing the amazing Dr. Brianna Ford, author and instructional literacy coach. We've heard such amazing things about her work and initiative that she's taken to promote the representation of children of color in her books that she's authored while also being an education advocate as an instructional coach.
Excellent. And ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's give a round of applause to the incomparable Miss Dr. Brianna Fulton. Welcome to the show and congratulations on being our Principals List recipient for the month of April. A is for Alcorn. How you doing, Dr. Fulton?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you, guys. I'm so grateful to be here. So thank you for honoring me.
Well, we're glad to have you because you're doing some incredible work, and it's an honor for you to be here with us tonight. So let's go ahead and jump it right off and get started. So, Dr. Fulton, tell the people a little bit about your story, who you are, and what you brought for show and tell, and what inspired you to become a children's author.
All right, fantastic. I am an educator originally from East St. Louis, Illinois. I am a 2014 TFA Memphis core member, as well as a literacy coach. I brought for show and tell all 3 of my books because they make me super, super happy. As an instructional coach and former 4th grade ELA teacher, literacy is very important to me, and so is representation. I think the kids should have people that look like them inside of their books, always representing them, so that it is a window for what could possibly be out there to see and do.
She has all of the books, and we're definitely going to talk more about the books as we get or move throughout this segment. So you kind of hit on this a little bit. Children cannot be what they cannot see. So what would you say to encourage teachers that do not have access to diverse and rich texts at their school that represent their students?
First, I would say be prepared to challenge and push for change, because there's no reason that students should not have access to those books. One thing that I noticed when I first showed up in my classroom was students were learning about colonial America, and they had a book like If I Lived in Colonial Times, and I had to pause and say they would be slaves, and that's not okay. As a result, you have to make sure that you ask for help. If your school does not have the funding to get you those books, I did a donor's choose. I asked everybody to donate, and I really wanted everybody to remember why I was doing it. So in the words of the great poet 2 Chainz, they asked me who I do it for. I always remember the kids. So make sure that everybody knows your purpose, why you're doing it, and then make sure that you ask for help to get what you need.
I know that's right. Okay, come on with the purpose-driven leadership. And my last question for you, and then I'll toss over to Brittany to ask some additional questions. So can you share with the audience a little bit about what the process and journey was like for you to become an author? There are so many people in the audience and in education that want to follow in your footsteps and author a book, but are intimidated by the process. What words of encouragement would you give to turn their dreams of becoming an author into a reality?
I would first say, remember that this process is challenging, but it is definitely rewarding. So it is not an easy process by far, but you have to remember why you are doing it. And again, I kept kids at the forefront. So my first book, A is for Alcorn, is a result of a dream that I had about students learning more about HBCUs. When I was in high school, didn't know about it, didn't know that they were a thing, and I wanted to change that for our babies. So number one, I would say always remember that your story is important. You have a story to tell, and it doesn't matter if it only resonates with one person. That one person is better because you put your message out there. So remember that you always have something to share, and that people are going to have to listen to it once you put it out there.
That's amazing. Brittany, what are some additional questions do you have for Dr. Fulton?
So Dr. Fulton, what would you say to encourage children who don't enjoy reading? What piece of advice could you also give their parents to maybe support with reading?
So babies who tell me that they do not like to read, I always say yeah. I had a lot of students in my classroom that would say, Dr. Fulton, I like math, and I just don't like to read. And I would say yeah. And I say yeah because there is a book out there for everyone. You just have to find it. And if reading is difficult for you as a student, and that's the reason you don't like to do it, just know that when it gets tough, you have to keep going. And just know that when it's hard, your brain is growing. So you're doing what is best. For parents, I would say I have 3 tips. Number one, make time to read. A lot of times in households, kids say, I don't like to read, so we just don't make them. But instead, make it something that they have to do. But also model what you would like to see. So always take the time to let your kids see you reading. That is something that my mom made sure that she did. Like, we always saw her sitting down with something just to take a look at it, and it made us want to do it. And then third, I would say provide access. If you don't have books in your home, getting a library card is free. Go ahead, check those books out. You can read literally anything, so just make sure that you are providing access to text so that kids actually see you reading, have something to read, and they actually have the time set aside to do so.
Thank you so much for those responses, and I really appreciate those tips, and I'm sure the audience does as well. Final question, how can the audience members get connected to you and your work, your books? Where can they purchase, and where can they follow you on social media?
Yes, absolutely. So all of my books are available for purchase on Amazon as well as Barnes & Noble. And you all can follow me on Instagram at Books by Dr. Bree. I update everything that I do there. So you can definitely find me. My link tree is also in the chat as well as on the screen. And you can just click on the book that you're interested in and it takes you directly to the website.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fulton, for joining us this evening. We are honored to recognize you. And for those that are looking for some hot reads to add to your summer list, go ahead and click the links in the chat for Dr. Fulton's books. It's below. Go ahead, you guys. She has plenty. And so this will wrap up our Principals List segment for this evening. And so now we're going to pop into our pop quiz.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you. It was an honor and privilege. All right, so you guys make sure to purchase those books for your students. And as we get ready to move right along, we're going to move into that pop quiz portion of our segment. Now, you guys know back in school, if you weren't paying attention, you really got caught up when that teacher said, look, got a pop quiz for you. So we have one on this evening, and we have 2 questions that we have for some awesome prizes that we're giving away. So let me show you guys a few of the prizes that we have. So the first prize we have is Where Do We Go From Here? So this book was written almost half a century ago, but guess what? It is still relevant and timely in today's time. So we have this book as well. We have a few notebooks. We have some lovely swag pens. And of course, we have some t-shirts. Everyone loves t-shirts. All right, so our first pop quiz question. All right, it is going to be, what is the name of learning that involves both remote and in-person learning? So our first pop quiz question is, what is the name of learning that involves both remote and in-person instruction? First response in the chat will have the goodies. Go ahead. So what is the name of learning that involves both remote and in-person learning? The first person to put the correct answer in the comment section will be eligible for one of our prizes. So once that person has the correct answer, our producers will elevate that up and we will share all of the good with them because they're going to get all these wonderful prizes. All right, so do we have a winner? Do we have someone who has put the correct response in the chat? Hybrid. Okay, Miss Jerica Salisbury. Woo! Congratulations. Okay, we had someone else who answered it. Okay, so she answered it first. So we will definitely be in your DMs very soon, giving you this wonderful prizes and also some information that we have for upcoming opportunities. And this second question that we have, Brittany, what's the second question? That pop quiz question. All right, what's our second question?
Our second question is, name one book from our Principals List recipient, Dr. Brianna Fulton. She showed us some of her books during show and tell. Just name one and drop it in the chat.
All right.
First person.
Jeopardy. Oh my gosh. You remember Peter Jennings and he won for like 2 months straight. Like, you gotta be smart. Look, I can do a lot of things, but winning a whole 2 months, we wasn't playing. All right, Brown Child, you are okay. She's just showing it.
Show it out.
Yes, congratulations. Well, we are going to be reaching out to you very soon for all of these wonderful prizes, and make sure to respond back so we can get you all of the goodies that you have won on tonight.
All right. So before we dismiss class, we have some afternoon announcements.
All right. So, of course, before we leave class, we have some afternoon announcements. We can't leave without giving you guys some updates about some opportunities and some things you need to know. So, we are going to have a very special episode of the Teachers Edition show next month during Teacher Appreciation Week. And y'all, what better year and what better month to celebrate teachers than next month, because we have really gone through some things. We will be hosting our Give Thanks Awards show, where we will honor and celebrate some amazing educators and allies in the work of education. If you would like to nominate someone who has done some incredible work during this pandemic and challenging school year, please use the link in the chat to nominate someone by April the 9th. So you can nominate someone. We're nominating teachers. We're also nominating students. We're nominating parents and community organizations who've literally gone above and beyond the call of duty. So we have placed the link in the chat if you would like to nominate individuals for specific awards. And then our next announcement that we have, 4.0 Schools, which is a national nonprofit dedicated to supporting people with ideas for how to improve education in the U.S., currently has 2 fellowships available. Their fellowships are open to anyone with an idea for how to improve education through nonprofits, for-profits, hybrid learning in school, etc. All applications are going to be due on Friday, April 23rd. And for more information, please complete the interest form that we're going to also place in the chat as well. And if you would like to have more specific information, please reach out to Ms. Jay Thornton, who is the representative for the organization that is sponsoring these 2 wonderful fellowships. But once again, we have dropped the link in the chat for you if you're interested and for folks to follow up with you about that. Brittany?
Also, for all of you TFA alum, don't forget our Barbara Rosser Hot Awards show is this Thursday, 8 at 6 p.m. So don't forget to check your email and RSVP so you can experience this virtual celebration of transformational TFA alums. And also, if you're interested in being on our show, have a hot topic idea, or you would like to nominate a deserving individual or organization for our principals list, please email us at thecollectivemem@gmail.com. Now, James, to the final bell.
All right, Brittany. Well, we've come to the end of the road, or the end of our show, but we are so full from the conversation and the dialogue that took place on tonight. As we continue to reimagine and redesign schools for the future, how will we choose to respond? Will we patch together a reaction, or will we use this opportunity to truly transform the system itself? All of the solutions to our challenges lie right in front of us, but it's going to take all of us to come together to ensure that all of our children have access to an excellent education.
Now, James, that's some food for thought. This pandemic, along with the severe challenges that require immediate attention, has also provided a vacuum where innovation can be tried, assessed, and developed further. Our sense is that there's many people, students, teachers, parents, and other stakeholders who see a dire need for improvement in our learning systems and are willing to work toward that end. And with the right combination of action, systemic change can occur at a more rapid rate than ever before in this past century.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, everyone in the virtual world who has come out to support us, this will conclude our show on tonight. And until May 2nd, continue encouraging alliances to create positive outcomes for our students, our teachers, and most importantly, our parents. Now, you know what they say, you ain't gotta go home, but y'all know the rest. Bye, everyone. Hey, this is my song, Brittany. You like this song?
I do. You know I do.
You know what?
Some Frankie Beverly. You know what? This is something my dad would play. Some Frankie Beverly days.
Look, now I don't know about you, but as soon as this is over, I'm heading over to Versus because they got Earth, Wind, and Fire. They have the Isley Brothers. Look, y'all, it's on right now, so you already know it's lit. I already know it's lit.
It's dinner time. It's time for me to eat.
So once again, thank you all for joining us tonight. If you haven't already done so, click that like button, click share, go back and rewind if you came in late, and make sure to stay tuned with us as we'll be having another special episode on May the 2nd. Have a good night.
Bye.